This kind girl's name is Younghua. She is a firefighter. Every time she is present at the scene of a fire, there will be no casualties. She is known as an extraordinary firefighter. Younghua is very kind. Even if the dogs are in a fire, she will try her best to save them. But such a kind girl is often haunted by nightmares. The strange thing is that every time when she woke up, she couldn't remember the content of the dream. Today, Younghua had another nightmare. She dreamed about ancient times. At this time, Silla was fighting with the country of Degaya. In dream, Younghua is the daughter of General Degaya. She helplessly watched her parents being executed. She looked at the murderer of her parents with an angry face. Silla's general was Doha. Younghua vowed to make him owe him blood for blood. From then on, Younghua began a life of revenge. She deliberately approached Doha and gradually won the opponent's trust. Finally, on a bloody moonlit night, she dealt with him with her own hands to avenge her parents. After Doha was destroyed, he became a stone tape. He stared at Younghua, who was running away with resentful eyes. He said that wherever you goes, I will definitely return to your side. Younghua desperately ran away, but was chased by Doha's men. In the end, she fell into the river and drowned. Younghua woke up from a nightmare, her whole body drenched in sweat and her heart beat very fast. This time, she still couldn't remember the nightmare she had just experienced. She sighed and decided to go see a psychologist. As soon as she finished washing her face, she had to immediately run to the fire scene. Younghua bravely rushed in to save the homeless man who was lying in the fire scene. Her colleagues immediately went in to take the homeless man out. Outside, only Younghua noticed the dog next to him. She immediately took the dog out and tried her best to revive the dog. With Younghua's efforts, the dog finally woke up. The homeless man burst into tears when he saw his only friend being rescued. He repeatedly thanked Younghua. After a hard day, Younghua was preparing to leave work. She smiled with photo of her father. She thanked her deceased father for always being by her side to protect her. On the way home, Younghua sat tiredly on the subway. Because she was so tired, she accidentally fell asleep on the monk's shoulder next to her. The monk suddenly saw a flash of red light. He didn't understand what was going on. Suddenly he saw Younghua's phone left on the train. He immediately chased after her to return the phone. Seeing Younghua's face, the monk felt a bit familiar. After Younghua thanked him and left, the monk suddenly discovered that behind Younghua there was a stone tape. He suddenly remembered this girl. When he was young, his master welcomed Younghua and her father. The monk had yin and yang eyes, so he saw the stone tape behind Younghua's back. He gave the rosary around his neck to Younghua. The master did not punish him, but also praised him for doing a great job. But if one day he met Younghua again, he would have to pretend that he didn't know her, because he was not the opponent of stone tape. The monk regained consciousness and looked at Younghua, who had gone away feeling extremely uneasy. He did not know that after saying goodbye to Younghua, stone tape had transformed into Doha's appearance. He even took advantage of her sleep to stroke her cheek. That night, Younghua had another dream. In the dream, Doha was in Younghua's arms. He fell asleep amidst her soothing singing. The next day, while Younghua was working, she welcomed the homeless man she rescued yesterday. The homeless man gave her a business card to repay the favor. The business card clearly stated the name of the entertainment company. Younghua was extremely surprised. This entertainment company is very popular in Korea. There are many famous artists in that company, of which the most famous is Juno, who is known as the nation's boyfriend. Juno with his handsome appearance and has a large fan base. In fact, he is not popular with others. When filming commercial videos about firefighters, he is always picky. He even loudly blames the 4-year-old baby for being too heavy for him to carry. This made the baby cry on the spot. He took his title as a famous star, so he asked the director to use stunt actors to film. The reason was because the fire next to him was too hot. He was afraid there was danger. There were only a few small fires around the scene. There was basically no danger at all. Juno finished complaining and left the studio on his own. Not only that, he is also a blind lover. During filming, he fell in love with actress Lee Sol. He was eager to make his love story public. To date, Lee Sol, he neglected all his work. He blatantly went to a cafe to buying things for his lover, no matter how many eyes are on the two of them. Lee Sol is completely opposite to Juno. She does not want to make their relationship public. Juno is an international superstar, but after dating Lee Sol, discovers that the person who is always hailed as a superstar is actually just a rock. As wonderful as that is, Juno is pure and stupid, incomprehensible. The hidden meaning in Lee Sol's words, he was just trying to show off for. Yi Sol saw the rock-hard muscles on his arms. Yi Sol could only smile shyly. As expected, his mouth was his biggest weakness. Juno didn't notice anything unusual about Yi Sol. He just immersed himself in the joy of love. He clearly remembers the 300-day anniversary of dating Yi Sol. He even took a selfie in front of his advertising potter. While having fun, he learned that Yi Sol would be acting with another male actor in a historical drama. Juno immediately went to find his brother, who was a director at an entertainment company. He begged his brother to help him won the role of Tae-ju. This really made it difficult for his brother. Unexpectedly, Juno said something he shouldn't have said. He reminded his brother of finding ways to fire the old director to get his current position, knowing that he had said something wrong. Juno immediately stood up and left. Juno's reminder made his brother feel uneasy. He asked his trusted lawyer if this guy could find the whereabouts of director Sok. Lawyer Kyung Se is also looking for, after being released from prison. Director Sok completely disappeared. They did not know that the homeless man living with the dog that Younghwa helped was Director Sok. When Juno returned home from her brother's place, he and Yi Sol celebrated 300 days of dating at home. Juno kept mentioning the story of Yi Sol acting with another male actor. Yi Sol was very upset after hearing this, but she still gently treated Juno like an elementary school student. Yi Sol couldn't stand it anymore, so she took advantage of Juno's sleep to leave a farewell message and paste it in his hair. The next day, when the manager came to Juno's house, he read that paper first. This guy shook Juno and woke him up, but accidentally discovered that Juno was unconscious. Juno was immediately taken to the hospital to check. The manager told Juno's brother about Yi Sol's proposal to break up with Juno, so that Juno could complete today's photo shoot. The brother decided to talk about this with Juno later. After resting, Juno went to the fire station to film a promotional video. Younghwa, an extraordinary firefighter, was invited to film with Juno at the beach. Juno always looked hard-working and patient in front of the camera. He seriously learned from Younghwa how to perform CPR, but Younghwa always had to correct his wrong movements. The reporter who had just left Juno immediately took off his clothes. He also talked to Yi Sol impatiently. He completely did not care that Younghwa was by his side, trying to correct his wrong movements. Younghwa angrily snatched his phone. This made Juno angry. Juno even mocked Younghwa, said that right now they were both just pretending to pose in front of the camera, so they didn't need to be so serious. Younghwa angrily stepped up and twisted Juno's arm back and forced him to apologize to her. Juno had to give in. The scene of the two arguing was recorded by a distant camera. Juno escaped back to the car. The manager was shocked to see the bruises on his arm. Juno was also shocked by this, but he had no idea that this was a bruise caused by a heart problem. When Juno's brother arrives at the hospital, the doctor diagnosed him with heart cancer. He could no longer have surgery. Perhaps it would be more beneficial for him to spend more time with the people he loves. His brother was extremely heartbroken. He decided to temporarily hide this news first. Then he ordered his subordinates to spread rumors about actor Nam Tae-ju. The purpose was to help Juno get the main role in the historical drama. At this time, Juno suddenly felt unwell and fainted directly in the car. Unconsciously, he pressed the accelerator and rushed towards the beach. Younghwa in the distance happened to see this scene. She quickly jumping into the sea to save him. Younghwa risked her life to break the car window and pull Juno out of the car, but when she was about to leave, she accidentally got stuck in the seat of the car. Younghwa struggled in despair. Finally, she also escaped the car, but passed out due to running out of oxygen. Suddenly, Doha appeared and kissed her. Scenes of two lovers in their past lives appeared in Doha's mind. The next second, Younghwa suddenly woke up. She tried her best to swim to shore. As soon as she reached the shore, she saw Juno, who had stopped breathing, lying above. After trying to save, she failed, and Juno was declared dead. After hearing this, Younghwa fainted and was taken into the ambulance. Younghwa's bloody hand accidentally touched Juno, who was being taken into the morgue. In a moment, the stone tape spirit entered Juno's body. The moment he sat up, the bruises on Juno's body due to heart disease disappeared one by one. He whispered that he had his body back. As soon as Younghwa woke up, she was hugged by Juno. Juno's eyes were extremely cold. He picked up the knife next to him to prepare to attack her. In previous life, Doha was killed by the person he loved. Doha pulled out the knife to attack Younghwa, but her guardian angel knocked him away. Doha still doesn't believe it. Juno is an international superstar. He stepped forward and prepared to kill Younghwa again, but as soon as he got close, Younghwa put her hand on his forehead. She asked him if he was in pain somewhere. At this time, Doha suddenly fainted. When waking up, the remaining memories of Juno suddenly flooded into his mind. He quickly shook his head and stood up to look for Younghwa. But after Younghwa recovered, she was discharged from the hospital early. He looked at Younghwa, left with eyes full of resentment. When Doha turned around, he was surrounded by a group of fans. Only then did he realize that this body was a famous star. Countless fans were waiting at the gate of hospital to support him. Even the news reported that he was resurrected. He also successfully transformed from national boyfriend to reincarnated boyfriend. Nam Taeju was angry after seeing the news about Juno. He were forced to withdraw from filming a new drama because of an adultery scandal. And the male lead position will be taken by Juno Yi. Sol even proposed to break up. He came to find Yi Sel to hope for her return to him, but he learned that Juno's brother had used scandalous photos of both of them to threaten. The purpose was to let Yi Sel and Juno film a new movie together. Taeju was very angry. He wanted to find an opportunity to get revenge on Juno. At this time, Juno arrived at Younghwa's door. Last time he couldn't kill Younghwa, so he decided to try again. Unexpectedly, he was still pushed away by Younghwa's guardian angel. He asked what was protecting her after all. Younghwa was extremely angry. She thought he was taking revenge on her, because last time she took his phone, Younghwa angrily asked him if he came here because he wanted revenge. Unexpectedly, as soon as he finished speaking, the guardian angel appeared. His brother Minho, when received the news, immediately ran over. He kept apologizing to Younghwa. Juno suffered from the sequelae of the injury caused by falling into the water, so he became obsessed with the person who saved him when he was close to death. Younghwa worked as a firefighter, so she knows quite well about psychological trauma, and she also understands Juno's actions very well. In fact, Younghwa also suffered psychological trauma when she was young. She often drew pictures of Doha and told the psychiatrist that there is always someone following her. Now the person she often dreams about is the one trying to think of ways to harm her. Doha picks up the script left by Minho and reads it. He accidentally discovers a scene in the script mentioned amulets. He suddenly remembered that many years ago, a monk cast a spell on a rosary and put it on Younghwa. It turned out that the reason he couldn't destroy Younghwa was because she still kept that rosary on her body. He suddenly thought of an idea. At night, Doha couldn't sleep. Memories of his past life kept appearing in his mind. Younghwa dressed in black to assassinate, but was beaten down by Doha with just one move. Looking at Younghwa's beautiful face, Doha suddenly smiled. He wanted to keep Younghwa by his side to torment her, and the bad fate between the two also started from here. The next day, Doha went to the company to ask her brother to invite Younghwa to the press conference for the new movie. When Younghwa arrived, he was in front of everyone, thanking her for risking her life to save him. This successfully made all the reporters poured towards her, paving the way for his future plans. Seeing Younghwa running away from the press conference, Doha immediately chased after her. He was only halfway there when Yi Sel stopped him. Yi Sel greeted him with an arrogant look, and she said she wanted the two of them to come back. Doha recalled Juno kneeling down to beg Yi Sel. He turned around and left in anger, leaving Yi Sel standing there alone. Younghwa had just escaped to an empty room when she suddenly saw that Doha had been here waiting for her for a long time. Younghwa angrily blamed Doha because he letting her appear in front of everyone like that. Saving people is her job. Any firefighter would do that too. That day it was just by accident, but Doha said it must have been her. If it weren't for her, he wouldn't be standing here. Younghwa thought there was a problem with Juno's head. That must be. It was post-traumatic stress disorder that had not yet healed. She understood very well, so she encouraged Juno to try to cure the disease, but she did not expect that Doha wanted her to be by his side. Younghwa was afraid and backed away, so she accidentally turned off the light switch, while Doha slowly walked towards her and turned on the light. Younghwa suddenly became confused. She quickly left this place. After returning home, she went online to check if the other party had a girlfriend, but she didn't know that Doha took her bag home while she wasn't paying attention, but Doha found no trace of the amulet, so he decided to went to investigate its origin. Then he called the manager and told him to go find out about a small temple. The assistant felt that this was of no use, so he didn't want to go. Just complaining a few words made Doha angry. Doha said that he was entangled in the curse of stone tape, and he told the assistant that Juno was really dead. He just happened to be in Juno's body. Seeing that the assistant still didn't believe it, Doha immediately controlled the flashing light with his thoughts to prove to the assistant. Only then will the assistant be afraid to agree to follow Doha's words. At this time, the monk in the temple seemed to have guessed. He told his disciple that there was about to be a visitor. The monk was very excited because the temple had not had visitors for a long time, but he unexpectedly that guest was the terrifying stone tape. Taeju was extremely angry after Doha stole his role, so he went to Doha's house to cause trouble. He thought Younghwa was an accomplice, so he was about to go find Younghwa to ask questions. As soon as he finished speaking, Doha teleported in front of him. Doha said, "I don't care what you does, but if you touch Younghwa, I will kill you, brother." Minho, after knowing that Taeju came here to cause trouble, he was worried about his brother's safety, so he found a bodyguard to protect Doha. He glanced at it and saw Assistant John hiding behind the bodyguard and smiled, understanding the assistant's intentions. So Doha immediately stepped forward and easily knocked down the bodyguard. Assistant John was so scared. Then Doha told his brother that he would find another bodyguard himself. Younghwa did not know that the other person had targeted her. She had just attended the commendation ceremony and was also nominated to the Antarctic Scientific Base. Before coming to Antarctica to work, she and her colleagues held a party to celebrate, drinking one glass of wine after another. But because she drank too much, Younghwa's head became dizzy. She stared blankly at Juno's photo on the wall. Unexpectedly, as soon as she turned around, she saw Doha standing right in front of her. Doha said he wanted her to be his bodyguard and wants her to be by his side at all times and everywhere to help him get back to normal. Younghwa wanted to go to the South Pole, so she politely refused. Younghwa said so he bet to see if she could walk or not. He remembered the scene where he bet with Younghwa in previous life. If he walked along the rocky road to the other side without turning back once, she would leave him forever. If he turns back, it proves he doesn't want Younghwa to leave. Doha moves forward. Younghwa throws 10 rocks behind him to make him turn around. Seeing Doha about to reach the shore on the other side, Younghwa cheated. She rushed up and hugged him. Doha hesitated, not knowing whether to continue or turn back. Doha picked up a piece of rock from the ground. This time he also wanted to cheat and win the bet. Keep Younghwa by his side to open Younghwa's protective shield. Doha goes to the small temple at the address given by Assistant John. Here he learns that the old monk no longer makes amulets. The remaining things, they were all hidden in the cabinet. Doha went to rummage through the cabinet. He discovered that inside were all large rosaries and protective Buddha statues. Doha sighed. Such a large amulet clearly could not be worn by Younghwa with her. It seems that Younghwa's amulet was not taken from this temple. Doha left the temple disappointed. If he kept Younghwa with him, it would make finding the amulet on her easier. So Doha contacted the fire department directly to lead the pressure on Younghwa, and also canceled the interview trip to Antarctica today, and she had to actively cooperate in filming public service commercials. Younghwa was extremely angry after hearing this news. She decided to go to the set to find Juno to settle the matter. But unexpectedly at this time, Doha received a text message asking him to go to the car, otherwise they would attack Younghwa. He thought that Taeju was coming to cause trouble again, so he quickly ran to the parking lot. Younghwa also came here to look for Doha, but accidentally saw him unconscious in the car. Next to him, there was a syringe. Younghwa just picked up the syringe to check and was knocked unconscious. The killer drove the two of them left. Assistant Jang received a call from Min-Oh. He told the assistant to stay to protect Juno's safety. Through the police, the brother learned that the day Juno fell into a coma and fell into the sea was not an incident, but caused by someone behind it. Assistant Jang went to find Juno and saw Younghwa's backpack on the ground. Remembering the director's words, he immediately called the police, but it was too late. The two were tied up in an abandoned building. Younghwa slowly woke up. She told Juno to pretend to be unconscious. After speaking, she pulled out the knife she was carrying with her and cut the rope. Then she stood up and fought hand to hand with the gangsters. But because there were too many of them, Younghwa was quickly defeated. Not long after, they received an order from director Kyung-se asking them to kill Younghwa and Juno. But they didn't want to kill anyone because Tisgai only gave a little money, but they still wanted to teach Younghwa a lesson. When they walked towards Younghwa, Doha suddenly appeared, and without much effort, he defeated the thugs. At the same time, he grabbed the leader of the thugs by the neck and asked about the mastermind behind it. He immediately gave Doha the phone number of the person behind it. After Doha got the phone number, he immediately used Younghwa's knife to stab this guy once, heard Doha's police car sirens, and immediately ran away. When the police arrived, they saw that Younghwa had just regained consciousness. Younghwa was taken to the police station for investigation. Because Younghwa's defense caused serious injuries to the thugs, she will be questioned and investigated during this time. Doha avoided suspicion because he had fled the scene before. He told his brother Minho that someone was trying to kill him. Thanks to Younghwa's help, he was able to escape. Next to Younghwa is the safest place. Doha's words made his brother make a decision. After finishing, Doha followed the phone number given by the leader of the thugs and found a phone booth. Through a surveillance camera from a nearby store, he discovered director Kyung-se, but he did not understand why the the other person also wanted to kill Younghwa. At this time, a voice always echoed in director Kyung-se's mind, urged him to kill people. Because he was so panicked, he unfortunately fell from a high place and died in an alley. Suddenly, the Stone Tape spirit was escaping from his body. Stone Tape took the body of assistant Cho Hwan and went to his house, telling Do-ha on TV that I hadn't seen you for a long time. Tonight, Younghwa had a nightmare again. In the dream, she and everyone were kneeling on the side of the road to welcome a very important character seriously. That person walked straight in front of her. When Younghwa woke up, she still couldn't remember the content of her nightmare. She quickly prepared and went to the police station to receive the investigation. But the main problem was the police showed a video of her breaking Juno's hand and forcing this guy to apologize. The video was posted online and received outrage from many Juno fans. People called for the violent firefighter to be fired like Younghwa. It turned out that this video was secretly recorded by Yi-Sol's manager and posted online. She threatened Juno to withdraw from the new movie he was filming. Do-ha was not threatened by her. Instead, he told Yi-Sol to stop bothering him, otherwise he would take revenge on her because of abusing grower Do-ha. So Younghwa was suspended for 3 months. She was extremely angry because the brother received news that the thugs woke up and insisted that Do-ha had beaten them. The brother decided to use money to silence the thugs. The lawyer reminded him that instead try best he could blame it all on Younghwa, but the brother firmly refused because he knew Do-ha liked this girl. Previously, Do-ha had offered to let Younghwa be his bodyguard. This was also his last act before his death. The brother had no choice but to agree. The police investigation agency came to Do-ha's house to give him evidence. In the photo, it was director Kyung-se, exactly like the man Do-ha saw in the video. The police wanted to find Younghwa to talk to, but unfortunately could not contact the other party. Do-ha was very worried and wanted to go out to find Younghwa. As soon as he got in the car, he received a calling from the older brother. The older brother is ready to help the younger brother fulfill his wish to keep Younghwa by his side. The older brother says he keeps his word. He tricks Younghwa into coming to Do-ha's hospital room and explains that Do-ha doesn't have much left. Do-ha's life is still very short, but there is someone who wants to harm him. His brother heard that Younghwa is called an extraordinary firefighter. Indeed, it is true. Every time Juno is with Younghwa, he was able to miraculously escape death and survive. The brother asked Younghwa to stay with Do-ha for the next month. In return, he was willing to help her reinstate her. Younghwa was convinced. She even proactively offered to find Do-ha. She tried to find Do-ha's figure in the living room. She walked to a small gravel road. The host threw a pebble at Younghwa from behind, just like in her previous life when Do-ha followed the stone path. When he reached the other side, Younghwa stood behind him and kept throwing stones at him. Do-ha stepped forward and asked Younghwa to protect him for a month. Younghwa felt confused. Someone wanted to take Do-ha's life, she not knowing if she could protect Do-ha well or not. Do-ha also had his own thoughts. He kept Younghwa by his side because he wanted to be able to eliminate her within a month. Younghwa accepted the job. She also signed an agreement with Juno's brother. She asked him to help her reinstate her and help her clarify everything. After the two sides reached an agreement, Younghwa started working. She and Do-ha went to the TV station to read the script. Heard that the restroom is where the gossip group gathers. This group was caught by Younghwa. The staff discussed Juno having difficulty reading the script. Last time read the script took up to 8 hours. The girl even released video evidence. Younghwa peeked from behind. Do-ha was sitting in the meeting room. Seeing the director passing by, he was completely indifferent. He didn't even stood up to say hello. Manager Jung tried to show him, but Do-ha only cared about where Younghwa was right now. Younghwa wasn't in the room, so he didn't want to stay here anymore. Manager Jung had no choice, had to find a reason to bring Younghwa into the meeting room. When saw Younghwa, Do-ha felt relieved. Anyway, he didn't come for work, but to meet Younghwa. While he was talking to the female lead, Yi-Sel, who was sitting opposite, laughed at Do-ha. She asked him how many hours he planned to spend reading the script this time. When the people present heard Yi-Sel's words, they began to laugh and mock him. Younghwa noticed that everyone was mocking him, so she advised Do-ha to show them who he was. After a while, the director walked in again and taunted Do-ha. The actor said he couldn't keep up anyway. This script reading was just a formality. The work started. Everyone took turns reading their lines. When it was Do-ha's turn, he stopped for a while. Then he used all his emotions and read his lines. His voice was full of emotion, making the actor opposite him move to tears. The director also had to clap hands, the eyes filled with surprise. After finishing work, the manager excitedly walked over to hug Doha, but accidentally spilled water on Doha's clothes. Younghwa took the initiative to go to the car to get new clothes for him. At this time, she found Doha's clothes when he was taken away in the trunk of the car. There were blood stains on them. Only close contact with the injured person leaves such blood stains. Younghwa immediately suspected that maybe the person who defeated the gangsters at that time was Doha. Younghwa was about to take the shirt to do DNA testing. Doha immediately stepped forward to stop her, but as soon as she turned around, the protective shield immediately appeared, making Doha unable to get close to Younghwa. Doha noticed that Younghwa's bracelet had a rosary on it. When she was a child, Younghwa had a rosary as an amulet, but her classmates all laughed at her necklace, which was very strange. Younghwa angrily threw the rosary to the ground. Younghwa's father was pick up one bead and turned it into a bracelet so Younghwa could carry it with her. Finally, he found her key point. While Doha was thinking, there was a car rushing straight towards him. The driver was Taeju. Just now, Taeju came to see Yi-sil to ask about the script reading situation. He didn't understand why Doha suddenly changed and received everyone's praise. Yi-sil was originally an arrogant person and always satirized Taeju for being incompetent in front of him, laughing and talking, but when turned away, her expression immediately became serious. Taeju was on the spot and was extremely angry. At this time, assistant Chul Hwan suddenly appeared. He shook hands with Taeju. That moment, the two hands touching each other brainwashed Taeju. Once Doha disappeared, everything would return to its original state. Taeju was controlled. Unconsciously, he drove his car towards Doha. At a dangerous moment, Younghwa pushed Doha away, and she was hit by car. Younghwa's bracelet also fell to the ground. Younghwa was taken to the hospital. While in a coma, she seemed to see herself in previous life, wanting to kill Doha. Younghwa, in her past life, sneaked into Doha's room at night. She stabbed Doha to death, but she was quickly controlled by Doha. She was also injured in the shoulder. He only saw at a glance and realized when Younghwa's entire family was executed. Doha noticed that the others were bowing their heads. They just cried and didn't dare look at him with their own eyes. But only Younghwa looked at him with an angry face. The next day, he bandaged her. He kept her in the house as a maid. Younghwa really wanted to stay close to Doha, to find a chance to take revenge. She would make him regret sparing her life. To destroy enemy. Younghwa ignores the wound on her shoulder. She practices archery from morning to night. Doha goes to the archery school to teach Younghwa the skills of holding a bow. He welcomes Younghwa to kill him at any time. She is extremely difficult to understand. Doha seemed happy to die in her arms. Younghwa quickly learned the real reason. Doha was the adopted son of a general with a high position in the court. His adoptive father had a lot of wealth. Doha went to battle to destroy the enemy, so he was highly respected by the king. His adoptive father was wary of Doha's existence. Once his position was threatened, Doha had to disappear from this world. Doha seemed to be walking on thin ice. Every day he had to help his foster father test for poison before eating. This made Younghwa feel confused every time he brought food. The servant told her that Doha was not the biological child of this family. After delivering the food, Younghwa was arranged to go on a mission with Doha. The two of them rode horses to a forest. After Doha ordered Younghwa to wait for him, he went towards the mountain. Doha stood under a big tree. There was a pile of rocks here. Doha used it to hold a memorial service for the people he killed on the battlefield. Doha went forever, but not yet returned. Younghwa saw that it had been a long time since Doha came back, so she went to the mountain to look for him. She witnessed Doha pouring wine on the stone tomb. Younghwa guessed he was commemorating the people of Daegaya. Doha also didn't deny it. The reason he chose to put the pile of rocks here was because he could clearly see the land of Daegaya from here. Younghwa thought he was trying to fake it. Doha was helpless. His mission is to eliminate the people of Daegaya, but in his heart, he does not want to kill people. This is the only way to express his feelings. He hopes that one day he can let go of all his sins and have a peaceful sleep. Resentments and complaints no longer echoed in his mind. Doha knew Younghwa's identity. On the sword that Younghwa used to harm him that day was engraved with a symbol. Younghwa's father was a brave and talented warrior. Doha treasured this man. He always remembered that symbol. The two returned to the forest. rest, but the horse had disappeared. It was already late now, so they had to go quickly to return. Do-ha quickly walked forward. He even reminded Younghwa to follow him, otherwise he would leave Younghwa behind. Younghwa had been keeping an eye on the person who harmed her father all her life, so she always tried her best to catch up with him. At this time it started to rain, and they both went into the cave to take shelter from the rain. Do-ha, after lighting the fire, he told Younghwa to come closer to the fire. If she wants to kill her enemy first, she must protect her health. Younghwa sat by the fire. The two discussed the topic of revenge. Do-ha believed that Younghwa would defeat him, and he also hoped that she would end this hellish life of him for many years, as long as it was his adoptive father's order. Even if it meant harming someone, he would complete it, whether he wanted to or not. Younghwa was very surprised. It turned out that Do-ha really wanted to die. He wanted to borrow her hand to escape from this hell. Younghwa angrily stood up. If she took action, while Do-ha also wanted to die, this would not be revenge at all. On the contrary, it would help Do-ha fulfill his wish. She ordered Do-ha to continue living. Only when Do-ha longed to live did death make him feel pain. Younghwa fell asleep in the middle of the night. Do-ha put his shirt on her. Do-ha fell deep in thought. Over the years, many people have wanted to eliminate him, but no one ever wished him to live. Younghwa was the first. Do-ha fell asleep next to Younghwa. Their hands were close to each other, so he accidentally touched each other. That night, Do-ha did not come home all night. When his adoptive father heard the news, he was suspicious of this newly arrived slave. His adoptive father had long been aware of Do-ha's abnormality. He never did anything on his own, but this time let the new girl into the house without saying a word. The adoptive father was extremely curious about Younghwa's identity, so he immediately had his people secretly investigate. Then, Long Dream Younghwa slowly woke up from the dream. This time, she finally remembered all the content of the dream just now. In a daze, she saw Do-ha next to the hospital bed. She grabbed his sleeve and unconsciously calling him sir. Do-ha was extremely shocked. He immediately left the hospital room. Initially, he wanted to kill Younghwa to escape the fate of Stone Tape, but now after learning that Younghwa still have memories of previous life, so he were a bit hesitant, and Younghwa was in a state of shock. Just now, she was immersed in a dream and couldn't get out. Younghwa was still rearranging her thoughts. Assistant Chulhuan took Taeju to a deserted place. He wanted to kill Taeju to keep this guy silent forever and eliminate his traces in the case, but not everything went as planned. Human wishes. Assistant Chulhuan left a mistake. The scene of him meeting Taeju privately was accidentally recorded by a surveillance camera. Fortunately, the police checking the surveillance camera were about to see this scene, but his superior called. His superior asked him to bring pictures of Yi-Sol meeting male actors. The police suspected that Yi-Sol might be Taeju's accomplice. Yi-Sol was extremely angry when she found out about this. She knew that this photo was secretly taken by Juno's brother, so she went to find him to settle the matter. She made it clear that she was not the murderer. She and Juno used to love each other, so how could she harm Juno? Juno's brother didn't believe her, so he directly invited her to leave. Yi-Sol angrily left. Halfway there, she suddenly came up with an idea to clear the suspicion. After sending Yi-Sol back, Juno's brother immediately went to see Younghwa. He returned her the amulet he found at the scene of the accident. Younghwa thanked him. Returning to the hospital room, she carefully placed the amulet on the table. She didn't notice Do-ha was outside the door. Do-ha did not dare to enter the room, but just stood there looking at her. He was afraid that he would hesitate and not be able to kill her. Younghwa was quickly discharged from the hospital and went home. She went to the rooftop to taking in the fresh air. Accidentally discovered Do-ha in the distance. She was happy to see him. She quickly ran downstairs to meet him. Do-ha looked at Younghwa's face. The image of Younghwa singing again appeared in his mind. He was afraid of facing Younghwa again before Younghwa went downstairs. Do-ha drove away. Younghwa was a bit confused. She immediately took a taxi to Do-ha's house to ask why he avoided her. As soon as she entered the living room, she immediately saw cancer treatment drugs scattered on the ground. Do-ha was now unconscious on the stairs. Nearby, Younghwa quickly walked over to check. She had a hard time calling. He woke up, but she only heard Do-ha keep asking who she was. Younghwa blamed him for taking too much painkillers. Even he didn't recognize her. Do-ha's expression was very sad, taking so many painkillers but still can't erase the pain in his heart. Whether it was 1,500 years ago or now, Younghwa always makes him weak. Younghwa helps Do-ha to bed and takes care of him. She even cooked porridge for him. Do-ha was extremely touched. He asked why she was so kind to him. Younghwa replied that it was her responsibility as a firefighter. Doha immediately became angry and directly kicked Younghwa out. After Doha calmed down, he thought back to the scene of Younghwa calling his name. He didn't understand that the other person clearly had no memories of Younghwa. But why did she can recognize him and dream for thousands of years? Younghwa's rebirth has never recognized him. Is it possible that in this life, the bitter fate between the two of you has come to an end? Thousands of years ago, Doha having told Younghwa all her feelings in the cave, Younghwa's heart also shook. She did not take the opportunity while Doha was sleeping to kill him. After this time, the bad fate between the two people sprouted. Doha saw Younghwa stumble because he couldn't see clearly. He silently lit a candle to illuminate her. Younghwa responded to his help. She gave Doha herbs to help him sleep better. The secret feelings between the two gradually arose. One day, Younghwa came to serve Doha, but learned that after receiving orders, he rushed to the front line. Younghwa was very worried. From then on, she often looked towards the door every day, until one evening, Doha returned safely, even though there were blood stains on his body. He passed by Younghwa with an expressionless face. He did not greet Younghwa because wanted to protect her. If he did so, his adoptive father wouldn't notice. But his wise father had someone investigate Younghwa's identity. When his adoptive father learned that she was the general's daughter, Degaya, he immediately showed a sinister smile. Who knows, maybe she could become a trap that Doha will fall into. Doha changed into his military uniform and went to meet Younghwa. Just now he discovered that she was waiting for him returned. He asked if she was worried about him. Younghwa refused to tell the truth. She said that she was just worried that he wouldn't die in her hands. Now she just wanted to kill him to avenge her parent, and then she calmly returned to the underworld. Doha was a little disappointed. He was determined to live well. This way, Younghwa would have a reason to continue living. After saying that, he immediately take a lotus seed as a gift. The lotus seed is hard and strong like a rock, so even if it is buried for thousands of years, it will not decompose. But if you want it to bloom, you must make a wound on the seed. Doha using lotus seeds as a metaphor for himself. He wanted her to cherish the steadfastness over thousands of years, quietly waiting for the day the lotus bloomed. Younghwa woke up from a dream. This time she remembered the content of her dream. She was immersed in the dream and couldn't get out. Suddenly she was hit by someone and almost hit by a bus. Fortunately, the assistant Chulwan saved her. Younghwa looked at his face and felt very familiar. Younghwa received a call from Doha's lawyer. He brought Doha's bloody clothes and wanted to ask Younghwa what happened that day. Younghwa was silent. She only said a few words and then made an excuse to leave. Younghwa hid the fact that Doha alone fought against the thugs. She didn't want him to be investigated by the police and waste some of his last time. The lawyer couldn't get any useful information from Younghwa, so he had to go to the hospital to visit the gangsters. As soon as he arrived at the hospital, he discovered that the door to the hospital room had been broken open, surrounded by police. The handcuffs of the thugs were released. Everyone had escaped. The lawyer had an even more headache. He accidentally saw the assistant Chulwan passing by. He began to have doubts. Assistant Chulwan left the hospital and went to a secret place to meet the gangster boss. The leader of the gangster gang had to write a suicide note as requested. Assistant Chulwan laughed loudly when he saw the suicide note. He's about to target Doha. The lawyer made an appointment to meet Juno's brother. He told Juno's brother that he saw Assistant Chulwan at the hospital. Juno's brother suddenly realized maybe Assistant Chulwan always had a grudge against him and was the mastermind behind it. In order to prevent Doha from being in danger again, the brother Juno decided to let Younghwa move into Doha's house, the purpose of which was to protect him 24 hours one day, so she could protect Doha at all times. Younghwa was very happy. She immediately agreed. Then she quickly packed her luggage. She picked up the amulet to look at it and accidentally discovered a broken ancient lotus seed. It looked very similar to the lotus seed that Doha gave her in her dream. Younghwa guessed correctly. The amulet was a rosary from ancient lotus seeds, but it was not made by a monk. The monk discovered that his disciple was rummaging around, looking for the protective amulet. The monk gave his disciple a talisman to ward off evil spirits, so that he could stick it on the place stone tape lived, so that he could help Younghwa. At this time, Younghwa went to Doha's house. Doha saw Younghwa appear at his house. He thought that she wanted to follow him. He even teased her. Younghwa was very angry. She felt that Doha always misunderstood other people's good intentions, making people who were really worried about him sad. Doha looked at Younghwa affectionately. He asked her if she was really worried about him. Younghwa shyly looked away. Then she conveniently turned on the TV to watch. But unexpectedly, the newspaper reported ancient lotus seeds from thousands of years ago finally successfully germinated. This lotus seed was discovered during the excavation of the castle, from the period when Scylla conquered Degaya. That was the lotus seed that Doha gave to Yonghua back then. Doha remembered the bet he made with Yonghua thousands of years ago. This time the lotus seed bloomed, and he won, and Yonghua whispered that it turned out that she had lost. And Doha was shocked when he heard what Yonghua said. Doha was shocked when she heard what Yonghua said. Yonghua quickly made an excuse to run away. She didn't understand why she said this. Yonghua went to the kitchen to get a glass of water to soothe herself. When she turned around, she discovered that Doha had disappeared. She went to a dark place to look for him, but unfortunately fell to the ground. Just like 1,000 years ago, Du has suddenly turned on the light to show Yonghua the way. The two looked at each other. Doha looked at Yonghua blankly. He didn't know if Yonghua really missed him or if it was just a coincidence. Early in the morning, Yonghua woke up and discovered that Doha had taken the dream decoding book that she often read recently. He even deliberately read out what she had marked. People in love often dream about the person they love. Perhaps Yonghua has been dreaming about him recently. Hearing that, Yonghua got angry and walked over, grabbed the book, but unfortunately, she tripped and fell. Yonghua was about to stand up and teach Doha a lesson when the doorbell suddenly rang. Yi Sil specially brought the favorite dessert of Juno because she wanted them to come back. But as soon as she stepped inside, she saw Yonghua standing nearby. She immediately felt the strong smell of gunpowder here. So she directly took Doha's arm and said she wanting the two of them to have their own space and telling Yonghua to go out her head and was about to leave. Doha directly smashed the dessert brought by Yi Sil. He told Yi Sil to immediately get out, but Yi Sil wasn't angry at all. She saw that Doha was completely different from before. She was even attracted to his charm. She was determined to have him. Manager John saw Yi Sil leaving angrily. He entered the house and saw two people cleaning up broken desserts. Doha was afraid that Yonghua's hand would be injured, so he immediately helped her, holding the piece of glass. Manager immediately understood Doha's intentions, so he immediately stepped forward to support. Manager Jiang deliberately mentioned that Doha loved someone else in front of Yonghua, so he rejected Yi Sil's good intentions. Yonghua thought back to Doha's kind actions towards her recently. She guessed that the person Doha was in love with was her. After cleaning up, Manager Jiang took the two of them to the archery field. On the way, the Manager John continuously supported Doha. Manager John deliberately asked Yonghua if she liked the online novel, for example, the love story of a loyal boy who only focuses on one girl. Yonghua said she liked the original style. At first, she wanted to take revenge on the person who murdered her parents, but later she fell in love with that person. Yonghua's sincere words made Doha a little confused. Soon they went to the archery range. This time, arranged the main actor will follow the director's request to come here to practice archery. Yonghua feels like she saw this scene in a dream. Doha turned around, he chased Yonghua and wanted to talk to her, but Yonghua asked him to focus on archery. The actors were all looking at the two of them. Yi Sil came and put the bow and arrow in Doha's hands. She enthusiastically taught him how to shoot arrows, but Doha kept staring at Yonghua. He also asked Yi Sil to stay away from him. After speaking, he raised his bow and shot straight into the bull's eye. This scene made everyone admire. After finishing archery, he turned around and took Yonghua to leave. When he got to a deserted place, he asked if Yonghua knew his true identity, and she even saw him in her dream. Yonghua was very wronged. She didn't want to confess, constantly dreaming about him. It made her heart become confused. Doha confirmed that Yonghua was gradually remembering past life memories. He remembered the time thousands of years ago. Yonghua had reincarnated a lot like that, but only this time, since childhood, she was able to see him in stone tape form. But when Yonghua grew up, she could no longer see him, but now the memories of that year came rushing back to her dream. Doha returned home and met Yonghua in the elevator. Yonghua looked uncomfortable. Suddenly a monk rushed over and directly applied the talisman to Doha's body, but Doha had high magic power, so he directly tore the talisman into pieces. The monk was extremely surprised and had no choice but to run away. He found the monk to ask the reason. The monk asked him to wait patiently. The amulet would definitely has effect. Indeed, as the monk said, Doha collapsed to the ground as soon as he returned home. He left Juno's body and returned to his stone tape form. But the strange thing is that this time Yonghua actually could see his appearance. A moment later, Doha returned to Juno's body. The stone tape in front of her eyes had disappeared. Yonghua was extremely panicked. She walked over to check and saw that Doha's pulse still beating. It's clear that the person in front of her is still alive. Yonghua's mind became chaotic. She was scared and quickly ran home. She still clearly remembered the shape of the stone tape appeared in front of her. It had also appeared in her dream. Yonghua suddenly remembered. It seemed like she had met stone tape when she was young. She was so scared that she screamed. Her best friend quickly quickly ran into the room. Only then did Younghwa gradually calm down. She thought she had mental problems, so went to see a psychiatrist. She told the doctor what she saw in the dream. At that time, Younghwa was at Do-ha's house. Now her adoptive father knew Younghwa's identity. He deliberately told her to prepare food for the father and son. After Do-ha finished testing the poison, Younghwa brought the food in front of him. His foster father grabbed Younghwa's wrist. At this time, there was a noise outside the door. His foster father said that recently there was a planro of lost items. Younghwa had just arrived, so she became the first suspect. Younghwa was tied up and kneeling in the yard, and a large amount of property was found in her room. In the face of all the evidence, Younghwa's gaze was still very resolute. She did not say a word of justification. The foster father asked Do-ha how a slave stole things from the palace. Do-ha protected Younghwa and said that although the evidence was convincing, it was possible that someone was fabricating the evidence. He asked his adoptive father to entrust the investigation to him. After all, Younghwa was a slave brought by him. The adoptive father ignored Do-ha's words and immediately ordered Younghwa to be locked up in the warehouse and continued to torture her until she confessed. Younghwa was tormented. Her identity was the daughter of General Daegaya. Younghwa has a strong personality. Even though she faced physical pain, she did not utter a single cry. Do-ha saw that his father was deliberately targeting Younghwa. All of those things were expensive items in the place, and normal servants can't touch it. The adoptive father saw that Do-ha was care about Younghwa. Do-ha was afraid that his love would get Younghwa into trouble. He quickly explained that she was just a lowly servant. The adoptive father also told the whole truth. He discovered that the traitor's daughter was still alive. He only needed to confirm her identity. Do-ha finally understood that his adoptive father had deliberately said these words to him. Younghwa's life is on the brink. Do-ha went to the warehouse door to care about the other person's injury, but she didn't want to involve him. She hoped he wouldn't stand up to protect her anymore. Just finished speaking. There was no more sound from the door. Younghwa thought Do-ha had left, so she felt a little disappointed in her heart. She helplessly lay on the ground and shed tears. In fact, Do-ha had not left yet. He was fighting internally, determined to make the final choice. He broke the lock on the warehouse door and came to Younghwa's side. Do-ha led Younghwa out of the palace. On the way, he encountered a guard. The guard also knew that Younghwa was the General Daegaya's daughter. Do-ha also did not hide it. He begged this guy to pretend not to see and let the two people leave. From now on, she would never appear again, but the guard refused and immediately drew sword rushed towards Younghwa. Do-ha immediately destroyed the guard and quickly took Younghwa to leave. The two of them came to a forest. Do-ha could only send Younghwa here. She just needed to go straight. She would arriving at Daegaya. She wondered why he would harm people because of her. Do-ha's thoughts were very simple. He just wanted to save her. Since meeting Younghwa, he knew what he wanted to do. Is to do as Younghwa said, has the will to live, and waits for Younghwa to kill him. Younghwa cannot hold back her tears. She says that if he does not keep his life, she will not leave him live in peace. Younghwa explains her dream for the doctor. The doctor concluded that it was just a dream and advised her that if she still saw the illusion, she should console herself that it was not real. Younghwa accepted the doctor's words. What she see that she is just an illusion. She should not be immersed in illusions, but ignore the wonderful life. Younghwa is not going to work today. Do-ha is worried about her spirit, so he always silently observes from afar. Seeing Younghwa in a happy mood, a fire suddenly flared up in him. He felt like he was worrying in vain. Now that Younghwa had gradually remembered past life, Do-ha decided to intending to take this opportunity to clarify the relationship between the two people. He wanted to attack Younghwa. The biggest obstacle was the two monks in the temple. Do-ha came to the temple. Because of that spell, he almost lost Juno's body, and he couldn't take revenge on Younghwa. The monk made it clear that Do-ha was the stone tape. He was always by Younghwa's side, which was also the object he hated the most. Only by eliminating this hatred will Do-ha be freed. But the monk also reminds him that revenge is not the only way to face resentment. But Do-ha still does not understand the hidden meaning behind it. Do-ha kept following Younghwa. He saw her and her best friend drinking too much. She even fell asleep at the soccer field while Younghwa was sleeping. Do-ha wanted to attack her, but Younghwa wake up in time and stop him. Younghwa, in a vague state, she looked at the person in front of her was Do-ha in an ancient costume. She stood up and hugged Do-ha's face. She told herself that everything was just an illusion. After speaking, Younghwa Younghwa staggered forward. She jumped around the soccer field. A moment later, she counted the stars in the sky. Her bewildered appearance looked extremely cute. After the chaos, Doha took Younghwa home. Younghwa passionately talked about her dream. She dreamed that Doha let her leave. She returned to Dagaya alone, but she was worried about Doha committing suicide. She thought that, if she left, he would be punished. She still hadn't dreamed of what happened next. Younghwa was talking while walking, and her body lost balance, so she fell backwards. Luckily, Doha acted quickly. He grabbed her shirt so she wouldn't fall. Doha used his strength to pull Younghwa towards him. When in close contact with Younghwa, Doha felt his heart suddenly beating very fast. Doha began to check his heart again. He was hesitating whether or not he should attack Younghwa. Right now, he felt very confused. He didn't know if he was hesitating because he was attached to Younghwa, or he was curious why he died that year. While thinking, the brother Mino appeared. Younghwa recently took a leave of absence. His older brother wanted to come and protect Doha. Seeing that his brother has always treated him well, Doha took a photo of director Kyung Se in the phone booth and gave it to his brother. Doha told his brother that he was probably the one who instructed others to destroy him. His brother was very surprised and immediately called a lawyer. His brother ordered the lawyer investigating the current whereabouts of director Kyung Se. As soon as he finished talking to the brother, assistant Chil Hwan called the lawyer and said wanted to make an appointment to meet him. Younghwa practiced yoga on early morning to calm the mood. She thought she was suffering from an occupational disease, so she confused reality with imagination. So she mistook Doha for the person of her dreams. But the more she thought about it, the more confused she became. Even in her mind were all images of Doha last night. Younghwa felt very embarrassed, so she decided to go find Doha to talk. She was about to go out when her best friend stopped her. Just then, her best friend read the latest news. Isol posted intimate photos of Juno online. Her best friend immediately helped Younghwa with beautiful makeup and took her to the event venue of Doha and Yisul. In the crowd of Younghwa seeing Yisul intimately holding Doha's arm, she also heard that the two were dating. Her face suddenly changed. She turned around and left in disappointment. After the event ended, Yisul was very satisfied. Doha helped her escape a scandal with another male idol. She even erased the suspicion of being an accomplice. She took the initiative to hold Doha's hand, raised but was pushed away by him. She could only watch Doha walk towards where Younghwa was waiting in the distance. Yisul saw Younghwa wearing makeup and dressing beautifully and immediately mocked her. She intentionally embarrassed Younghwa. Younghwa was dragged away by Doha. On the way, she told Doha emotionlessly. This time she came to see him just to get her luggage at his house. She felt it was time to leave. Recently, her mood had gotten worse and worse. Last night she was drunk and even mistaking Doha for the guy of her dreams after speaking force. Younghwa took her luggage and left, just walked to the door and met the brother Juno. Mino guessed that something had happened between the two of them. Doha has recently been strangely obsessed with Younghwa. He said that Younghwa saw his true form. Younghwa heard this and immediately remembered that night the monk had placed the talisman on Doha. She immediately went to the reception desk and asked the monk's name that day. At that time, the receptionist was very impressed with the monk to tell Younghwa that the other one was from Oksim Temple. So Younghwa went to the temple to meet the monk. Hearing what the monk said, she realized that the rosary was made from ancient lotus seeds. It will protect the owner from evil spirits or demons, and also prevent the owner from seeing ghosts. Now that the lotus seeds have broken, so she can see the stone tape and remember the content of the dream. Younghwa was thinking when she suddenly remembered the last words. Doha said to her that night. Doha confessed that he was no longer alive. He only temporarily borrowed Juno's body. She didn't understand what did he mean. She just had to make an appointment with Doha to talk clearly. The two met on the bridge. Doha guessed that Younghwa remembered what happened that night, so he directly used his power, turned off all the surrounding lights, and then turned them back on. Then he confessed that he was stone tape. He had stayed in the human world for more than 1,500 years. He just wanted to know how he died at that time, and how he died, and why did Younghwa kill him. Go back 1,500 years ago. It was Doha and Younghwa's wedding day. Doha took out a rosary made of lotus seeds and put it on Younghwa. He expressed his true feelings with her, hearing that she was Doha's wife in her past life. Younghwa was so excited that she burst out laughing. She mocked him for being a ghost from 1,500 years ago and still wanted to take advantage of her. Doha was extremely angry. He immediately said everything in Younghwa's childhood story. Last year, her co-worker borrowed $5 million from from her, but she didn't dare to ask for it. Hearing that Younghwa looked unconvinced, Doha watched Younghwa leave, even though Younghwa said that she didn't believe what Doha said. But when she returned home, she remembered her childhood. She often saw the shape of stone tape. In fact, she believed most of Doha's words. Younghwa had a hard time falling asleep tonight. Doha's eyes also sank into thought. He looked at the bruises gradually appearing on his body. Younghwa's 30th birthday was coming up. It was time for her to rest. On a beautiful day, Doha arranged to meet Younghwa next to the Yellow Water Lily Lake. He told her the story of the Yellow Water Lily in the lake, which was the symbol of the Degaya family. Those dreams of hers were not imagination, but a true story. Happened 1,500 years ago. Doha was reincarnated with her many times, but only in this life could she see him. Doha convinced Younghwa to continue the dream and told he knew the truth about his death. He wanted to end this endless torment to be reincarnated. Younghwa's eyes turned red when she heard Doha's words. Over the years, she had to endure many torments. Since she was a child, she could see the stone tape and she was trapped in fear and couldn't sleep. But Doha only cared about his own liberation. He completely didn't care about her pain. Younghwa said he was selfish. If he wanted to be reincarnated soon, he should forget everything that year by himself. She told him not to bother her anymore. Doha could only sigh. Watching Younghwa leave made his heart even more confused. Going back 1,500 years ago, Doha dealt with the guards and escaped with Younghwa. Seeing that the guards had caught up with them, Doha chased Younghwa away and he stopped the guards. As soon as he turned around, an arrow was flying towards Younghwa. He quickly ran back to block the arrow for Younghwa. After being hit by the arrow, Doha immediately lost consciousness. When he woke up, seeing that he was in the palace, he immediately asked his adoptive father that where Younghwa was. The adoptive father could only laugh and said that Younghwa had already been dealt with by me. Doha had completely lost control at this time. For the first time he opposing his adoptive father, he vowed to sever the father-son relationship with him from now on. Without Younghwa, he had no reason to live. After said that he left the house despite his adoptive father's objections. But when opening the door, he saw Younghwa kneeling outside. Next to her were a few people who knew that Younghwa was the enemy's daughter. His adoptive father stepped forward and killed all the witnesses. He just did that just to watch. How important is Younghwa to Doha? From now on, he will take Younghwa hostage to control Ha working for him. After saying that he ordered the two of them to get married, he did not stop threatened Younghwa's life so that Doha could obediently listen to him. Younghwa did not want to be manipulated, so she went on a hunger strike. Doha advised her that instead of being hunted down and killed, she should listen to his adoptive father so that she could live, so she could wait for the opportunity to kill her enemy. Younghwa said nothing. In fact, she didn't want to see Doha being controlled by others, but the fate of the two people was as thin as paper. They could only patiently follow Doha's adoptive father's orders. Since Doha was caught by his adoptive father, he often ordered Doha to go to the battlefield. Even though his wound had not healed yet, he still had to obey orders to lead the army to war. Younghwa felt sorry for Doha's situation, but now the only thing all she could do was pray for Doha's safe return. Not long after Doha returned home exhausted, hearing the noise, Younghwa suddenly woke up. She proactively helped Doha take off his armor. She accidentally discovering that Doha's body was very cold. She guessed that Doha had a high fever. Before she could call the doctor, he fell to the ground. When his foster father heard the news, the father immediately ran to see the situation. The father even threatened, "If Doha, you couldn't wake up, I would take Younghwa's life." Younghwa's eyes were wet, taking advantage of Doha's coma. She pulled out the knife next to her and intended to kill him. She didn't want him to be threatened by his adoptive father because of her paping him. Death is better than alive, so she wanted to help him escape from this hell on earth. She was miserable and wanted to see him go, but in the end, she still couldn't do it. She collapsed on Doha's chest and sobbed. Doha woke up to see the knife falling next to him. He guessed it was Younghwa's. He asked her why she once again gave up the opportunity to kill him. Younghwa looked sad. Compared to killing Doha to repay, the more she hoped he would wake up soon. The more she talked about this, the two of them felt tired. Being manipulated by others is extremely painful. She wants to ask Doha a question. She doesn't want to harm him anymore, so how should she live in the future? She begs Doha to help her find a reason to continue living. Doha held Younghwa's hand. He promised promised to help Younghwa for the rest of his life. Younghwa felt relieved. She expressed her feelings for Doha. Younghwa woke up. She was still immersed in the dream and could not unable to escape. She kept shedding tears. She hated that the unhappy lovers of her previous life affected her spirit. She was an outsider, and yet others immersed in it were insiders like Doha. How miserable and helpless would be. Thinking about this, she suddenly remembered the day at the Golden Lily Lake. She felt guilty for the excessive words she said to Doha, and also to those who were caught up in fate for 1,500 years will finally end in this world. Assistant Cholhwan is the reincarnation of Doha's adoptive father. Cholhwan made an appointment to meet the lawyer. Waiting until the lawyer drove close, Assistant Cholhwan immediately pushed Taeju towards the car. Taeju immediately died on the spot. He then helped the panicked lawyer dispose of the body after everything was resolved. The lawyer gradually calmed down. Meeting Cholhwan late at night meant putting himself in danger, but everything happened. The lawyer had to accept being controlled and obeyed orders to bring him before Juno's brother. Assistant Cholhwan reminded Juno's brother that Juno, after being resurrected, had changed a lot and was no longer the same Juno as before. If Juno's brother wanted to confirm what he said, try testing Juno. Let's ask about a secret that only 2 people know. The older brother thought about his younger brother's recent changes, so he decided to check it out. Older brother of Juno called Younghwa and invited her to his house for dinner. Younghwa wanted to take this opportunity to apologize to Doha. Younghwa went to Doha's house. Juno's brother specially prepared a table of food for her. At the dining table, Juno's brother took the opportunity to check on Doha, asked Juno if he remembered when he was a kid when he went to catch seafood and accidentally fell into the water. Doha didn't think much and just nodded and said yes. His brother was extremely disappointed and then made an excuse to leave the table, to went into the kitchen and whispered to himself. That was wrong. Actually, the person who fell into the sea was Juno's brother. After eating former, Doha let Younghwa go home. Younghwa apologized for her excessive words that day. Since dreaming about the sad story of Doha and Younghwa in the past, she understood him, and she also wanted to know why Younghwa in the past killed him. Now she wants to continue that dream because wanted to know the outcome of Doha and Younghwa, and she also wanted to help Doha escape since the two reconciled. Younghwa was like a curious child. She kept asking questions about her experience of reincarnating many times of Doha. Doha doesn't care. He just wants Younghwa to dream as soon as possible to see the ending of the two of them. Moreover, in 1,500 years, most of them are everyday things. He has almost forgotten memories of those years. Younghwa suspected he was not telling the truth. At least, Doha still remembers what happened when he was young, seeing the other person appear in every minute and second of her life. Younghwa is extremely happy. The person who lost parents when was young like her will no longer feeling lonely again. Perhaps Doha is her guardian angel. Seeing Younghwa's self-answering appearance, Doha suddenly smiled. Younghwa did not have any dreams tonight. She sighed in disappointment. Before, when she closed her eyes, Doha's image immediately appeared. Now she was excited to dream, but had a good sleep. Younghwa felt worried. Today she didn't know how to face Doha. She finally mustered up the courage to go to Doha's house. She happened to meet him just after taking a shower. Younghwa saw Doha's strong body and immediately blushed with embarrassment. She quickly ran out. After Doha changed clothes, he immediately asked Younghwa what he dreamed about last night. Younghwa took a sip of coffee, looking at his eyes as if he wanted to swallow. Her Younghwa immediately thought about tricking Doha. She was planning to make up a story, but while trying to come up with an idea, Yisol suddenly ran over. Yisol threw a bunch of photos in front of the two people. Paparazzi were always lurking at Doha's door and took pictures of Younghwa Ra entering Doha's house. These people are still spreading rumors about them and slandering Doha and Younghwa for living together. Younghwa is not married yet, was pregnant. As soon as Paparazzi's article appeared, Yisol was extremely angry. She felt like she was the national beauty, but had her man stolen by an ordinary girl. She threatened war. Doha must help her solve this problem, otherwise she will spread the news that Younghwa is a vixen who steals other people's men. Doha in order to protect Younghwa, so he had to agree to take intimate photos with Yisol. The paparazzi took the photos, only take photos of the two of them. These people left satisfied, and they also deleted photos of Younghwa and Doha. Compared to the love between a star and an unknown woman, the stories about a superstar couple received more searches. Younghwa was very sad. She felt that she was not as beautiful as Yisol. She felt that the two of them were more suitable for each other. He immediately comforted her that 1,500 years ago, Younghwa was the one who received Sorabul. and Daegaya recognized her as a beauty. Younghwa had reincarnated many times, but she was the only person with the same face as Younghwa. Hearing these words, she shyly turned away. While the two were being sweet together, the police investigated that the man who was next to Taeju that day was Assistant Silk. At the same time, Taeju's body was picked up from the river along with a suicide note. In the suicide note, Taeju said he died was because of Juno and Juno's brother. It was because they forced him to die. The news was reported and received strong opposition. Juno's brother asked a lawyer to handle this. They must not let the name Juno appeared in actor Taeju's article. After speaking, Juno's brother told the lawyer to take him to see. Assistant Chul-won guessed that Juno's brother had discovered Juno's abnormality. He also directly reminded Juno's brother that Juno's body had been taken over by an evil spirit that had lived for more than 1,000 years. As long as he chased away that evil spirit, Juno would survive. Then he revealed the scars on his chest that had been possessed by evil spirits. He said he had also been through everything, so he had a way to save Juno. Juno's brother saw the Assistant Chul-won's strange, so Scars immediately believed what he said. Juno's brother begged Assistant Chul-won to tell him how to save his brother. The police came to find Do-ha and informed him that Taeju's death had been concluded. Do-ha even more don't understand. It's clear that the police have a video of Taeju meeting Assistant Silk in private, but why don't they continue to investigate Assistant Silk? The police don't know what to say. They can't hide it anymore, so they just had to tell Do-ha the truth. Juno's brother stood as a guarantor for Mr. Silk. Do-ha was extremely surprised. He was worried that Younghwa was in danger, so he wanted to take her to the fire station. The two of them had just reached the door. Then Juno's brother suddenly appeared. The older brother noticed the strange scar on Do-ha's body and immediately made an excuse to get closer to Do-ha to check more closely. But Do-ha shook his hand away. Seeing the younger brother react like that, the brother became even more convinced that what Assistant Chul-won said was true. His younger brother was possessed by a demon. Younghwa saw the tense atmosphere, so she quickly stepped forward to relieve Do-ha. Then she immediately dragged Do-ha away. When the two of them left, his brother received a call from a hospital in America. They carefully studied Juno's examination report. It was concluded that Juno was no longer able to be treated, and they advised him to accept the fact that his younger brother was about to die. But Mino loved his younger brother so much that he could not accept this. He could only put hoping for Assistant Silk. When the older brother went to see Assistant Chul-won to find a solution, Assistant Chul-won showed a gloomy expression and advised him to kill Younghwa. Then Do-ha would recover on his own. At this time, Do-ha took Younghwa to the fire station. On the way, Younghwa also noticed traces of evil energy under Do-ha's neck. When she returned to the office, she saw a photo of Do-ha on the wall without that scar. She was extremely confused. While she was lost in thought, a group of colleagues surrounded her. They wished her a happy birthday. Younghwa was also given tickets to visit an amusement park. Younghwa was extremely happy. She felt thanks to the kindness of her colleagues. After saying goodbye to her colleagues and going home, she sent a text message saying she had arrived safely at Do-ha. At this time, Do-ha felt relieved, and he told himself in his heart that in this life, he will not let Younghwa die at the hands of others. That night, in order to have a beautiful dream, Younghwa specially invited her best friend to sleep with her. She hopes that with her best friend's sleeping style, she will not be able to sleep too deeply, and also convenient for the dream. She then bribed her best friend with amusement park tickets, successfully letting her best friend sleep with her. Younghwa didn't dream at all tonight. She was extremely depressed, but last night she agreed to went to the amusement park with her best friend. So this morning she had to go out, but unexpectedly she saw Do-ha waiting at the door. Do-ha was worried about her safety. After learning that she was planning to go to an amusement park, he had to take manager John and the two of them to the park to prevent fans from recognizing Juno. Manager Jang bought him a special bunny mask. Do-ha was helpless, so he put on a mask and followed behind to watch the three of them. They also pulled him onto an exciting roller coaster to play with. Do-ha was extremely scared. After falling from the sky, he quickly told Younghwa to go home. This game was really too dangerous. Younghwa couldn't disobey Do-ha's words, so she had to reluctantly leave with him. But halfway there, a group of fans recognized Juno. Everyone immediately rushed towards him. Younghwa saw this and immediately pulled Do-ha away. Just like that, the two of them were able to avoid the pursuit of fans. In the end, he was forced to hide in a haunted house. Didn't expect Do-ha was stone tape, but he was afraid of the fake ghosts here. He was scared and screamed after rushing out of the haunted house. With Younghwa, he didn't forget to block the door. Both looked at each other's ugly appearance and laughed hard. Do-ha was filled with emotions. If only he and Younghwa could live in this era, they would be a normal couple like any other couple. When going Going out all day, manager Zhang drove them home. Younghua was tired and quietly leaned on Doha's shoulder. This time she finally dreamed of her past life memories. The wedding night of Doha and Younghua. Doha saw that the bride looked serious, so he advised her to cheer up a bit. Younghua smiled and reminded Doha that he should still take care of himself. Doha asked her to call him husband. Younghua smiled and stood up. When he said such words, he should smile like this. Doha was meditating in the yard. Every time he wanted to shake hands with the other person, will all hesitate at the last moment. Younghua's 30th birthday is approaching. Younghua is also about to face the fate of death. In this life, he wants to kill Younghua himself, then reincarnated again so that he wouldn't be like his previous life when he saw her die right before his eyes. Not only Doha wanted to destroy Younghua, but even Juno's brother was trying to harm her. In order to save his brother's life, he came to meet Sok. The opponent asked him to destroy Younghua because the evil spirit possessing Juno was a great crime created by Younghua in previous life. The evil ghost turned into a poetic spirit and accidentally took over Juno's body, just making Younghua disappear. That devil no longer had a reason to exist. Assistant Cho Huan made Juno's brother become insane. Then he immediately went to Younghua to thank her for saving him from the fire. Mr. Cho Huan invited her to coffee while the two of them talked. Assistant Cho Huan accidentally talked about ghosts. He secretly wanted to remind Younghua that the innocent souls who were killed and became the possessed spirits are all evil spirits, but they are still attached to the world. Seeing that Younghua didn't believe him, Assistant Cho Huan told her, the person who turns into a ghost spirit will represent it, regret and hatred for the human world. A ghost with a grudge cannot be gentle. If Younghua sees ghosts in real life, she absolutely should not believe their lies. Younghua was so scared that she didn't know what to do. She quickly said goodbye, and leaving, she always felt that Assistant Cho Huan's words were aimed at Doha. Juno's brother came to see Doha. His brother wanted to confirm Assistant Sok's words. He deliberately probed Doha and suggested asked Younghua to quickly return to the fire station to continue her mission. Once the time was prolonged, it would be even more disadvantageous for Younghua. Doha strictly refused. He warned his brother not to take care of his own affairs. He and Younghua too just need to patiently wait for a while to be able to end everything. And his brother's heart has already determined that Doha indeed has great feelings for Younghua, just in time. For Younghua, he arrived. He intended to talk directly to Younghua about going back to work, but was stopped by Doha. Doha injured his brother's cheek. Seeing Younghua, the two of them didn't want to dispute either. His brother quickly said goodbye, then left. Doha advised Younghua to temporarily stay away from his brother. He had a bad feeling. Younghua was very angry after hearing that. The other person was Juno's biological brother. She did not believe that Juno's brother would harm her. Younghua was very disappointed. She felt that Doha had been very lonely lately, so she wanted to come with him on a date. She didn't expect to hear these words as soon as she walked in. Doha sighed. He couldn't tell. Younghua knew that he would die soon. He could only let Younghua misunderstand him. Younghua left angrily and happened to meet Juno's brother, who had not yet left. She thoughtfully bought a bandage for him. She also helped him treat his wound. Then she apologized to his Juno's brother on behalf of Doha. Younghua was still complaining about Doha just now, but now speaks well of him to his brother. Juno's brother is thinking. He asked Younghua to help him, does something for him. Right now, Doha's mind is all about Younghua's smile like a flower. Younghua's fierce face when killing him in his previous life, combined with Younghua's smile in this life, made him decide that he could not let her enter his heart and harm him, continuing to reincarnate in hell on earth. Younghua followed Juno. Brother's request. She asked Doha to go on a trip. His brother said he wanted to leave some memories before Juno died, so he can send his younger brother away without regret. At the same time, his brother emphasized that when the two brothers interact, it is always a bit awkward. He hopes that Younghua will use her name to ask Doha out. She absolutely did not mention the brother. Younghua understood very well the brother's mood and immediately agreed. The next morning, Doha came to pick up Younghua. He noticed that Isol was in the corner, so he immediately chased after to stop her. Isol looked at him angrily with the recent death of the male idol. Juno was also acquainted with this person, but Juno's name did not appear in the news. On the contrary, Isol had become the subject of investigation, attracting everyone's attention. Miserable, Isol. She thought it was Juno's brother who erased Juno's name from the news. Isol warned Doha that she would never endure everything alone. Even if she dies, she must find someone to take the blame for her. Doha is not afraid of her threats. He will soon make Younghua disappear completely. Not long after the two arrived, Younghua carrying large bags followed Doha. Before she could take a few steps, Doha felt sorry for Younghua, so he immediately picked up her luggage. They both arrived at the campsite and saw that Juno, a brother, was also there. Doha then realized that he had left. Younghua tricked him into coming here. After eating, the two brothers talked privately. The older brother brought water to give to Doha. Doha drank it without warning. After a while, he felt dizzy and fell down on the ground. His brother decided to eliminate Doha and take back Juno's body, as long as he could save his brother, even if he had to kill Younghua. He would not hesitate. The brother was completely manipulated by his assistant, Cholhuan. Assistant Cholhuan said that Stone Tape is an evil spirit that Younghua created. Younghua also knows about the existence of Stone Tape. She is helping the evil spirit take Juno's body and then live a happy life with evil spirit. He completely believed in Assistant Soak's words. After Doha fell into a coma, Juno's brother came in front of Younghua and forced her to the edge of the cliff. Juno's brother apologizes to Younghua for his younger brother, so he is forced to take action against Younghua. After all, Younghua's past life's karma led to the current situation. Younghua was confused and did not understand what the brother meant. At this time, Duha came and shouted, "Younghua name." Younghua turned to see the other. At the same time, his brother pushed her down. She held tightly to the edge of the cliff to avoid falling. Younghua gradually became exhausted. The scenery also goes back to ancient times. Younghua was now sitting in her room, worried because she was about to marry the enemy who killed her parents. Doha felt Younghua's sadness, so he helped her prepare luggage and showed her a way out for her to find the remaining family and start a new life. Younghua is worried that after she leaves, he will be punished, and at the same time she also wants to hear Doha's sincere words, that he hopes should she stay or leave. Doha said that he wanted Younghua to leave. Younghua couldn't bear it, so she wanted to bet with Doha. Both of them went to the lake. In the middle of the lake, there was a stone road. Just Duha, go straight to the other side without turning back. She will agree to leave. On the contrary, Duha must admit that he does not want to let Younghua leave. Duha readily agrees. He step by step walks towards. On the other side, seeing that the other person did not turn around, Younghua panicked and threw a small stone at Doha. Doha still did not react. Younghua could only say one sentence, that if he did not turn around, they would end up here. Doha cruelly did not turn back. He continued to move forward. Unexpectedly, Younghua hugged Doha from behind. This was cheating, but Younghua did not care that much. She had imagined countless times that if the two of them were not enemies, but an ordinary man and woman, they would be many times happier than they are now. But if the two were not in a hostile relationship, they will not meet each other. But in the end, he reluctantly turned back to look at her teary eyes. Younghua had won the bet. Doha wanted to know if she would regret being with him later. She thought he will regret it, but now they have no way back. Hearing Younghua's answer, he couldn't control his emotions, so he kissed Younghua. The two of them didn't come home all night. They lay under a big tree to rest. Younghua sang him a song. Doha was immersed in happiness. He held Younghua's hand and patted his hand. At the same time, Doha went to the cliff and held Younghua's hand tightly. He pulled her to the ground to escape danger. Younghua hugged Doha tightly and thanked him for saving her. Younghua always considered Doha to be her guardian angel. After this time, she was even more certain. Younghua hugged Doha tightly, going through the life and death moment. She was sure she did not want to leave Doha. She prayed to Doha to never leave her. After listening, Doha hesitated. It seemed like he couldn't personally destroy Younghua now. Younghua felt unwell, so she fainted. Doha took her to the hospital. Compared to the injuries she suffered, Younghua was interested in the last sentence that Juno's brother said, that all of this was karma from a previous life. Younghua did not understand what that meant. Why did his brother know about her past life? She was as he spoke, his brother came over. Seeing that Younghua was okay, he immediately turned around and ran away. Doha immediately chased after. His brother had to say that someone told him that only if he killed Younghua would he be able to save Juno. Doha tells him the truth, that even if he harms Younghua, his younger brother will not come back. The matter of one life for another does not exist. To be more precise, otherwise, if Doha had entered Juno's body, Juno would have been a cold corpse. After speaking, Doha raised his head to look at Younghua upstairs. She also heard the conversation between the two. As soon as Doha turned around, the brother was left. He went to Assistant Cholhuang and asked the other person, "Why you lied to me? Is Juno dead already?" Assistant Cholhuang nodded and sarcastically said the brother was still holding on to that unrealistic illusion. Assistant Cholhuang originally thought he could trick the brother into eliminating Younghua and erasing the mark on his body. But now it seems that the other person is just a trash like Taeju. He got angry and pushed Juno's brother down ground and wanted to kill him. The brother quickly ran away to the elevator, but assistant Cholwan was one step faster, pressed the elevator open, and used a rope to strangle his brother and drag him back to the room. Younghwa, hearing the conversation between the two people, she knew Doha was hiding something from her. She kept asking Doha to confirm the karma story. Doha sighed. For 1,500 years in each lifetime, he helplessly watched Younghwa die in front of him, and without exception, Younghwa in every life died before the age of 30. Perhaps this was God's curse on her. Younghwa did not believe in destiny. She once heard Doha say he had a way to lift the curse. She immediately wanted to know the details. He knew he had to kill Younghwa so he could lift the curse, but now he couldn't do anything. He could only tell Younghwa that the only way could not be used. As soon as he finished speaking, the hospital suddenly called to inform him that Juno's brother was in the emergency room. The two of them quickly went to the hospital. From the police, they learned that the brother had been seriously injured by someone in the hotel. Now they didn't know if they could continue to live or not. When the two of them were guessing who it was that wanted to kill the brother, the lawyer suddenly appeared. The lawyer knew that Mino had been severely injured and was so scared that he couldn't speak clearly. The lawyer kept saying that it was that person who did it. Duha remembered that the brother had also mentioned someone incited him to kill Younghwa. He quickly stopped the lawyer and asked the lawyer who that person was. Just as the lawyer was about to tell Doha the truth, a flower pot was thrown at the lawyer from above. Doha saw that and immediately pushed the other person away. The lawyer was scared and quickly ran away. Regarding the current situation, Doha suspected that maybe in the curse between the two of them, there was also the existence of a third person that he did not know about. When he arrived, he took the lawyer into the surveillance room. The lawyer confirmed that this guy was Assistant Sok. After seeing the other person's appearance, Doha was extremely confused. Time went back 1,500 years ago to the first night after the marriage ceremony of Younghwa and Doha. Doha's adoptive father called Younghwa. He wanted to know if she chose to marry the enemy who killed her father because she loved the enemy who killed her father. Younghwa was extremely angry. She never forgot this feud. Marrying Doha was also to personally destroy the enemy. The adoptive father felt relieved after hearing that he also had a plan to eliminate his son. Once if the loyal dog disobeys his orders, he cannot keep it anymore. He plans to send Doha to the battlefield after the two get married, then let him die heroically on the battlefield. Younghwa came to Doha's room with tears in eyes. Whether they got married or not, it was difficult for them to escape death. He would definitely survive back in front of Younghwa. On the wedding day, both of them had their own thoughts. They raised their cups of wine to drink. Doha put the lotus seed necklace on Younghwa's neck. He promised whether life or death or reincarnation and time changes, then his only wife was Younghwa. Younghwa woke up from the dream. The agent took her home and then took out the gift that Juno's brother had asked him to give to Younghwa. Younghwa broke the bracelet when saving Doha. The brother ordered a similar one to be given to Younghwa. Younghwa suddenly remembered the monk who said that lotus seeds would return to their original owner no matter what. It seems that the monk already knew some of the inside story. To clarify her doubts, Younghwa went to the monk. She didn't understand what karma she had committed in her past life to be cursed in this life. The monk didn't say much, but just reminded her that perhaps Younghwa's feelings for Doha in this life could resolve this continuous reincarnation on the way home. Younghwa remembered every scene with Doha. She soon understood her heart already placed on Doha. Perhaps her love for Doha can break this 1,000-year curse. As soon as Younghwa calmed down, the assistant Cholwan appeared in front of her and smiled sinisterly. Assistant Cholwan divided Younghwa and Doha's relationship. His expression was fierce, and he told her that Doha was reincarnated by Younghwa that year, which caused the two people with a bad fate for 1,500 years. Younghwa thought about seeing the bruises on Doha's neck and seemed to believe her assistant Cholwan's words. She felt like she had lost all her strength and weakly collapsed to the ground. She didn't dare to believe that she had harmed Doha. At this time, Doha saw the face of assistant Cholwan through the surveillance camera. He suddenly realized that there was a third person between him and Younghwa. During these years, this person has always been plotting to harm Younghwa. Doha gives the lawyer one day to investigate the whereabouts of assistant Cholwan. Doha doesn't know that assistant Cholwan is suffering unbearable pain. He has a feeling that his time is running out. He had to kill Younghwa as soon as possible to end this life. Very quickly, Assistant Cholhuan came to Yisol. Duha has finished arranged a lawyer, and accidentally saw Younghua, bewildered wandering walking on the street. She was even almost hit by a passing car. Younghua saw Doha coming. She felt extremely guilty. She tried her best to stay away from the other person. Doha stopped. Younghua left. He has completely given up the idea of harming her. He just wants to follow his heart. He will try his best to protect Younghua's safety and not let her be in any danger. Doha gave Younghua returned home. He comforted her not to worry about the fact that soon one of them would be killed, because he had found the third person related to the curse of the two of them, that is, Assistant Sok. Younghua expressed surprise and told the truth about Assistant Chelhuan coming to find her today. She also said Assistant Chelhuan already knew their past life identities. Younghua, after finished speaking, she thinking about what Assistant Chelhuan said, that she killed Doha in past life, she immediately walked over and lifted his shirt. After seeing the wound on his neck, her mood immediately hit rock bottom. She heartbrokenly asked Doha if it was very painful when he died. Doha didn't want to remember that unforgettable pain. He said a few words and then left. Younghua looked at Doha's appearance and felt extremely guilty in her heart. She cried bitterly. She swore she would definitely investigate Doha's curse. The two of them are wondering where to start and where to end. Tonight, Younghua dreamed about 1,500 years ago. Doha's adoptive father gave her a poison and told her to mix it with Doha's wine tonight. This colorless and odorless poison can cause his limbs to stiffen, causing his movements to become slower on the battlefield, at which point the personal soldiers the foster father has arranged will take advantage of the chaos, secretly harming Doha. The adoptive father did not know that Younghua's love for Doha had overcome the enemy that killed her parents. Younghua returned to her room and looked at Doha, immersed in joy, but she showed worried and sad. Doha said that no matter what hell it was, as long as she was by his side, it was okay. Younghua went to the kitchen to get food for Doha. She discovered that there was food next to her that was about to be brought to the foster father of Doha room. She chased the servant away and secretly put the poison that was supposed to be used on Doha into the wine. At midnight, after waiting for Doha to fall asleep, Younghua held Jade's sword and quietly went to Doha's adoptive father's room. When the opponent's limbs stiffened, she immediately killed him. The adoptive father was extremely painful. Before he died, he left a curse on Younghua that no matter how many lives she was resurrected, he would always find her. He will torment and kill her over and over again. Doha suddenly woke up from his dream. After receiving news from the guard, he rushed to his foster father's room. He discovered that his foster father had stopped breathing. Next to him was Younghua's jade sword. Very quickly, Younghua was escorted in front of Doha. She was not afraid and made up her mind that she would die. She waited for Doha to kill her. Doha was extremely disappointed and immediately pulled out her sword and pointed it at Younghua, but he only cut the rope that tied Younghua. Now his adoptive father is dead. Doha declares that he is the master of this family. Then he orders the guards to leave, despite the outrage of everyone he brought. Younghua left. Doha asked his wife why she did such a reckless thing. Younghua told the truth about Doha's adoptive father's plot. She did not want the person she loved to be killed on the battlefield. This time, she decided to endure and go into hell alone to rescue Doha. As long as she was captured, Doha would of course have nothing to do with this. But Doha was already involved. From the moment he fell in love with Younghua, the two people's fate had begun. Doha comforted Younghua that he would handle everything well. After he comforted, Younghua fell asleep. He took the sword and walked out. Outside the door full of loyal guards of Doha's adoptive father, they asked Doha to hand over the murderer. Doha still fearlessly pulled out his sword to kill all the guards. Younghua woke up to find that Doha had disappeared. On her body was covered in blood. She quickly went back to the palace to find out the news, but she only saw the ground full of the body of the guard. The villagers criticized Doha for not only handling the wife who had attacked his adoptive father, but also protecting her. He destroyed all the loyal guards in the palace. Hearing that Younghua almost fell to the ground, fortunately, Doha came to take her away from here. After the government learned about this, they ordered the arrest of Younghua and Doha. They ordered the soldiers to arrested two of them. Doha and Younghua hid everywhere. Younghua burst into tears and pain. She did not expect things to turn out like this. Originally wanted to save Doha, get rid of hell, but she did not expect that she would put him in hell. They had to be cruel to countless innocent people. She did not want to live in such pain anymore. Doha comforted his wife that as long as the two of them escaped and returned to Degaya, they could begin Aegean. Doha kissed Younghua, then stood up and killed the soldiers who surrounded them. Younghua picked up the sword from the ground, and a meaning flashed in her mind. Doha once said he was in prison. He wanted Younghua killed him to help him end everything. She suddenly realized that if the two of them were together, Doha would not be able to escape. Younghua told Doha that she loved him, and then decided to kill him. Younghua waking up from the dream, her face was full of tears. She couldn't believe that she killed Doha and pushed him into the abyss, so he had to endure 1,500 years of suffering. Younghua cried bitterly and went to see Doha. She kept saying sorry. He confessed that year she killed him. At the same time, assistant Cho Huan arrived at Doha's house's door. Younghua learned the truth about why she killed Doha and cried bitterly. Necessary, she confessed to Doha that she wanted to get him out of hell, so she decided to kill him. Both were wrong from the beginning. Doha did not agree with Younghua's thoughts. Because he was with her, he was doomed to fall into hell and suffer the curse. But as lovers, how could she let him go to hell? Younghua ran out crying. Doha chased after him, waiting for 1,500 years. He finally confirmed Younghua's deep love for him. Now he sees clearly. As long as Younghua treats him sincerely, he will still love Younghua, whether in hell or not. Younghua was about to say something when she happened to meet her best friend. They were both reminiscing about the past. Doha accidentally saw assistant Chol Huan was in the distance. Suddenly his wound hurt so much, he quickly told Younghua to go home. Quickly, then he chased assistant Chil Huan. Doha looked around but couldn't see the assistant. Suddenly there was a sudden sound of car brakes coming from Younghua's side. Doha rushed over. It turned out that assistant Chil Huan wanted to attract Doha's attention, then told Yi Sol to push. Younghua got into the oncoming car. Luckily, her best friend pushed her away, but her best friend was hit by the car and fell to the ground. Yi Sol was urgently arrested for attempted murder. While the lawyer was watching the news, suddenly assistant Chol Huan came here. He told the lawyer to send a sentence to Doha. The father would definitely find his son to take revenge. The lawyer found Doha and told the person what assistant Chol Huan said. Doha suddenly realized that the person behind this was his adoptive father. He had existed on Earth for 1,500 years, just to continue killing Younghua for revenge. And Younghua did not know so. She went to her father's grave. She prayed to her father who always protected her. This time, Dad must protect her best friend's friends safely from trouble. After Younghua prayed, she suddenly remembered something. She quickly dug up the soil and took out the wooden box buried in the ground. That is the protective bracelet that her father knitted for her that year. Younghua took the bracelet and drove to Doha's house. But as soon as she got out of the car, she met her assistant Chel Huan, who had been waiting for a long time. Assistant Chel Huan confesses his identity as Doha's father, that he has been killing Younghua for 1,500 years in every lifetime. Today, he would also repeat what happened before, after saying that he intended to attack Younghua, but was pushed away by the amulet. Assistant Chel Huan was extremely shocked. Seeing that he could not get close to her, he could only begin to destroy Younghua's psychological defense. He sarcastically mocked Younghua because the curse with Doha led to the death of her parents. Now even her best friend is in danger. This is all karma for the two of them. As long as Younghua wasn't dead, everyone around her would still be cursed. After all, 1,500 years ago, Doha harmed countless innocent people because of Younghua. The words he said made Younghua feel extremely painful. Younghua immediately said to Doha, assistant Chol Huan was possessed by his adoptive father. Younghua was worried about where she and Doha would go if she lived just one day. The people around her would be in danger. He took her home and wanted to prepare food for her. Younghua pulled Doha back. She really needed a companion at this time. Younghua worried that if she didn't die, there would be innocent people involved. 1,500 years ago, in order to save her, Doha harmed the guards in the palace who wanted to block way. Because of saving Younghua, her best friend was seriously injured. Younghua is depressed. Her love affair with Doha is destined to be a tragedy. The curse also exhausts Younghua both physically and mentally. She is not afraid of death. She just hopes the people around her will not because of her, then fell into danger. Doha understood Younghua's suffering, but in this life he realized that he loved Younghua very much. He couldn't let Younghua die. He didn't want to lose the person he loved. He will protect Younghua and the people around her at all costs. Doha sits next to Younghua's bed and tells his true feelings. Younghua pretends to sleep without reacting. Younghua rests at Do's house one night. The next day she went to the hospital again. Her best friend had woken up. Younghua excitedly hugged her best friend and kept a apologizing, seeing that her best friend was okay. Younghwa thought back to what her assistant Cholwan said. As long as Younghwa is still alive, everyone around her will be in danger. Kind-hearted Younghwa cannot put the people around her in danger just by letting her live. Younghwa has an idea. She sat outside in the yard, breathing fresh air and enjoying the broad flavors of nature. She also prepared a special lunchbox for her close friends. Then Younghwa brought delicious lunchboxes to visit her colleagues at fire department. She walked around the office and found her own locker. She couldn't help but her eyes turned red. Doha didn't know what Younghwa was thinking. Today he went to assistant. Cholwan was being possessed by his adoptive father. All these years, he still couldn't understand why his adoptive father kept chasing him. It was clear that at that time, he had been oppressed and suffered extremely by his adoptive father. The adoptive father recalled his anxiety to Doha. Doha was brave and good at fighting, so he was loved by the king. The king told his adoptive father that I did not hesitate to pass the throne to Doha. From then on, his adoptive father was wary of Doha. Then when Younghwa entered the palace, Doha began to rebel against his adoptive father for the sake of the person he loved. His adoptive father was dissatisfied and considered Doha like a puppy he raised, and this puppy must listen to its owner, for the stubborn animal can only teach it a lesson. His adoptive father calmed down, but did not explain the reason clearly to Doha. He could not say, because he was afraid that Doha would threaten his position. Answering like that, he looked like a coward. The adoptive father emphasized that even if I did not take action, I could still use words to influence Younghwa. In every future life, Younghwa would not be able to escape the fate of death. Looking at the sinister face of adoptive father, Doha grabbed him by the neck and warned, adoptive father, no matter who your soul possessed, I would find and destroy you. Doha would not let him become a threat to Younghwa. The foster father reminded Doha that he could stop her from attacking Younghwa, but could not stop her determination to end her life. After saying that, he immediately took a flower pot and hit Doha on the head. Then he took the flower pot next to him and threw it on Doha's back. The adoptive father looked pleased. His original plan was to take advantage of the people around, to threaten Younghwa and push her into the cliff and let her choose to leave the world. Doha rushed back to the hospital. The best friend gave Doha the relic that Younghwa asked her to give him, which was a note and amulet. Younghwa wrote that she wanted to correct her wrong fate. If at first, when she saved Juno from falling into the Han River, she did not ask for divine protection, but obediently accepted the fate of death, then perhaps everyone would tragedy will not happen. Reading this, Doha immediately rushed to the Han River. Younghwa was in the mood to end everything. She sat by the Han River. She couldn't stand everything. The scene of two people talking loudly, laughter echoed in her mind. Younghwa shed tears. She constantly comforted herself. She did not regret choosing to leave. When she made up her mind to go to the water, Doha arrived at the right time and appeared behind Younghwa. Younghwa turned her back on Doha. She didn't want to be persuaded by him. Doha said it wasn't like that. He brought his determination to eliminate Younghwa to this world. But in the end, he was shaken by Younghwa. Thinking back, he realized that meeting her meant he had chosen the luckiest among the unlucky ones. Doha bet on whether Younghwa could die indifferently, just like in previous life. Doha stepped forward and hugged Younghwa. Younghwa revealed her true feelings, that she really didn't want to die. She was worried she would fall in love with Doha again, and the tragedy of the past life will recur, but she can't control her heart. She can't stop herself from loving Doha. She wants to live with Doha. Doha makes a promise. He will definitely find a way to change destiny so that both of them can continue to live. After speaking, Younghwa turned around. Doha kissed the person he loved. After both confirmed their feelings, they walked together on the Han River and enjoyed the sweet moment. In this last moment, looking at the sparkling lake surface, Younghwa suddenly remembered that when she was about to suffocate while trying to save Juno, it was Doha who appeared and saved her. Doha looked proud and told Younghwa that he was her guardian angel, and the two kissed more than once. Younghwa seemed embarrassed, so she turned around and quickly left. When the couple enjoying the happiness, assistant Cholwan's body became weaker and weaker. After he drained the souls of passers-by again, he silently vowed to speed up the killing of Younghwa. One day, Doha went to the temple to meet the monk. He went straight to the point that he wanted to know how to destroy his foster father's evil spirit. The old master did not directly answer Doha, but reminded him that that whether it was the stone tape or the devil, they must have obsessions in their hearts, so they are constantly reborn, and do not want to leave this world. As long as he find out what the devil is still entangled in, he can destroy the enemy. Doha is enlightened. He left the temple. On the way, while thinking about this, he received a call from the representative. His brother was seriously ill. They were going to the hospital with Younghwa first. Younghwa went to the hospital, but the nurse said the brother was fine. She wondered, so she went to the hospital room to investigate and saw Assistant Chol Hwan, who had been waiting here for a long time. Assistant Chol Hwan really wanted to kill Younghwa, but he couldn't because Younghwa wore an amulet, so he had to threaten Juno's brother life. He used a scalpel to stab his brother in front of Younghwa. Younghwa rushed forward to use the amulet to block in front of the brother. Then she put on the amulet on Juno's brother hand and lured Cholwan to the stairs. When Younghwa was about to be caught up by his assistant, Chol Doha rushed forward and pushed her into the next hallway. Doha alone faced him. Before that, Doha listened to the monk's words. Suddenly he realizes his adoptive father's desire to kill Younghwa before she turns 30. The closer Younghwa gets to turning 30, the evil spirit of her adoptive father becomes weaker and weaker. He will kill her until Younghwa's 30th birthday. That's why his adoptive father was very worried and determined to eliminate Younghwa quickly. And what he had to do was protect Younghwa until he was 30 years old and solve the 1,000-year curse, even though he later disappeared. Doha had no regrets. After speaking, he pushed Assistant Cholwan to the ground and escaped from the hospital with Younghwa. Assistant Cholwan was chasing after him endlessly. When just about to catch up with the two of them, a car stopped on the side of the road to pick up Doha and Younghwa. Assistant Cholwan could only watch the two escape. Then he went to the hospital to settle the matter with Juno's brother, but he discovered that Younghwa's best friend and agent had already taken Juno's brother to the ambulance. He angrily drove after them, but eventually lost sight of the ambulance. The lawyer took Doha and Younghwa to safety and advised the two to temporarily hide. The lawyer will also escape to a place where Assistant Cholwan cannot be found. It turns out that what the lawyer is talking about is prison. He went to the police station to report the crime and revealed that the Assistant Cholwan was the murderer who injured Juno's brother. The lawyer confessed to the police that he killed Taeju, but the lawyer did not expect that he had just been arrested. Assistant Cholwan came to the place. He killed many prison guards and went to the cell just to find out where Younghwa was. The cowardly lawyer was worried that Assistant Cholwan would kill him, so he just had to say where Younghwa was going. At this time, Doha and Younghwa had already gone to a remote area. Younghwa was tired and fell asleep in the car. Doha held her hand. He suddenly saw her dream. After Younghwa killed Doha, she was in extreme pain and put a knife to her own neck. Doha suddenly spoke up to stop her. He begged Younghwa not to die but to live well. Younghwa broke down and cried, she no longer having the courage to draw the sword. Younghwa slowly woke up and looked at Doha with red eyes in front of her. She held his hand and begged him not to leave her. After that, the two of them lived happily together forever. Doha was a bit confused. He protected Younghwa until her 30th birthday, and then he would also leave. But at this moment, facing Younghwa with burning eyes, he did not tell the truth. A few days later, the two lived in a remote countryside. They live a normal and happy life as a couple. They go shopping together and wear cheap couple rings together, but they don't pay attention to the Assistant Cholwan who chased them to this place. In the evening, people gathered together to congratulate Younghwa on her 30th birthday. Suddenly, the room lights went out, and Assistant Cholwan appeared in front of everyone with a gloomy expression. He rushed in front of the table and slashed the cake and rushed towards the Doha. The two fought together. Younghwa's best friend quickly took Younghwa out the back door. Assistant Cholwan pushed Doha down on the table. He was about to stand up, but a heavy object fell from the roof. Not unconscious, Assistant Cholwan ignored Doha and picked up a weapon to look for Younghwa. At this time, her best friend discovered that the car key was dropped in the house. Younghwa could only tell her best friend to wait for her. Then she returned to the house to get the key. When Younghwa left, her best friend suddenly noticed a dark shadow rushing towards her, and her screamed in fear. When she looked closer, she discovered that it was Juno's older brother had woke up, looked at the amulet that Younghwa put on him, and burst into tears. Then he drove to find Doha and Younghwa. Unexpectedly, they were only halfway through when they saw the scene of Assistant Cholwan slashing Younghwa with a weapon. Junie's brother rushed to stand in front of Younghwa. Assistant Cholwan was knocked out by the amulet. Cholwan watched the broken amulet fall to the ground and burst into laughter, knowing there was no more amulet to protect Younghwa. So Cholwan lifted the scissors and wanted to kill her. Luckily, Doha arrived in time to stand in front of Younghua. Doha reluctantly pulled the scissors out of Cholhuan's hand and pushed him to the ground. Assistant Cholhuan laughed maniacally and taunted Doha. You clearly knew you was about to die, but why fight to protect Younghua? Once I dies, you will have no reason to exist. You will also disappear with me. Younghua then understood that Doha in 1500 last year, becoming the stone tape by her side, was to protect her from being harmed. Assistant Cholhuan, this is also the reason Doha became the stone tape. Younghua's eyes were red. She hugged Doha tightly and didn't let him leave. Doha reluctantly removed Younghua's hand and rushed towards Assistant Cholhuan, then killed him. Then Doha weakly fell into Younghua's arms before Doha died before his eyes, as if a light flashed by. Memories of 1,500 years appeared. Two people met and fell in love. They lived a normal and happy life together. Doha smiled, even though his long life was full of misfortune. But since meeting Younghua, he finally felt happy. Younghua looked at Doha about to disappear and cried, extremely heartbroken. Not long after Younghua woke up in a hospital bed while she was in a coma. Doha entered her dream. He told Younghua that the moon would also rise during the day. It's just that people don't notice. He would turn into the moon in the sky and shine for Younghua. He would stay with her forever. After Younghua woke up, her best friend told her that today was Juno's funeral. Tears immediately fell from her eyes, but a miracle happened at this time. Juno should have been in the morgue, but was completely normal at his own funeral. Younghua received the news and rushed to the funeral home. She hugged Juno back from the underworld. Juno looked surprised at the strange girl in front of him, seeing that the other person didn't recognize her. Younghua felt a little sad. She left the funeral home. After Juno woke up, he was gone. Memories of this time, the beautiful memories of the two people, were forgotten by Juno. Younghua couldn't hold back her tears while sitting at the bus stop. In the blink of an eye, it was a year later. During this 1 year, Juno underwent chemotherapy. The cancer is gradually being cured. He will also devote himself to filming television. Juno returns to his old life, but one thing makes him full of doubts. Every morning, when he wakes up, he will always think of the name Younghua. Juno longs to find his lost memories. His brother advises him that sometimes losing your memory is a good thing. If you can't remember, don't force it. Seeing that his brother refused to say anything more, Juno didn't ask any more questions. One day, Juno randomly found a box at home, which contained a photo of him and Younghua together. Juno took the photo and asked his brother. His brother explained that Younghua saved him and became Juno's bodyguard. Now she has returned to work at the fire station and continues her usual job. Hearing his brother say that Juno remembered that Younghua had twisted his arm, Juno, immediately curious about Younghua. Every time he had painful chemotherapy, he had the intention of giving up, but at this moment a voice appeared in his heart and encouraged him to never give up. He must continue to live. Juno felt that the voice belonged to Younghua. She was the one who helped him overcome his illness. Juno wanted to meet Younghua, no matter what. Seeing Juno's serious face, his brother arranged to meet Younghua at the temple. Juno immediately called Younghua from behind. Hearing his voice, Younghua's eyes turned red. He turned to look at her. Juno wanted to know what the relationship between the two of them was. He discovered there are many strange things about himself. For example, he will use a strange tone to talk. Juno seems suspicious. Only the representative next to him knows that is Doha's way of talking. Besides that, he always thinks to Younghua. Younghua lied that she was just a fan who saved Juno. So Juno thanked Younghua for rescuing him. From now on, he will no longer be curious about his relationship with Younghua. He will enjoy life and start a new life. After saying that he took out the things he found at home, he gave the letter that Doha wrote to her. Younghua went to the Han River to read the content of the letter. It was filled with Doha's sincerity and love for Younghua. He hoped she could live strong. Younghua hugged the letter in her heart. She understood Doha's kindness. At the same time, she whispered, swearing in her heart that she would definitely live well. Younghua looked at the dim moon in the middle of the day. She firmly believed that Doha would always protect her. Today was Younghua's birthday. She was celebrating her birthday with her friends. She continued her work and daily life, occasionally releasing a wish lantern hoping to see her lover again. With this wish, she will live her life to the fullest every day and not let Doha's sacrifice go in vain. Younghua always wanted to go to the Antarctic Research Station. Finally, her wish came true. She boarded the plane to Dreamland. Younghua rested on the plane. Doha, after a long absence, came to her dream. In the dream, she changed her choice in her previous life. Younghua said, I love you to Doha, then put down the weapon in her hand. She did not attack Doha, but rushed into his arms. Younghua knew this was just a scene in her dream. The past life had happened, so she could not change it. She can only change the past choice in the dream. At least let the lovers be together in the bind. Dream, Doha hugged Younghua. Suddenly, arrows shot from around the two of because of that. So stop wrath. Younghua secretly hoped that they would definitely meet again in the next life. God seemed to have heard honored Younghwa's prayers. In her next life, she transformed into a student taking pictures at a temple. She was attracted by the moon in the middle of the day, so she wanted to take some beautiful photos, but she accidentally tripped backwards. Then she was caught by another guy. The guy looked exactly like Doha. Younghwa thanked him. Both looked at the dim moon in the sky and started talking to each other. The distance between the two of them was shortened. In this life, they definitely received a happy ending belongs to them. The movie ends here.